finally have slides. Not that it was that important, because I know this room is set up weirdly, and you guys don't see this very well. So don't worry, nothing important. What's important is and also the team are recording these, because there's always a lot of requests for, are you recording this? And getting the text sent out is always tricky. So anyway, hello, thank you very much for waiting for me. I'm going to talk to you about integrating UX and design disciplines smoothly into your team. I had a really nice, actually a really crappy font there, but of course it didn't go through because I don't know how to design very well. I know how to do UX. My name is Sophie Freiermuth. I'm at Baguette UX on Twitter, and I am currently a UX lead here at Pearson on a product called One-to-One Learning, which is an app to be used in schools. I'm a freelance UXer, and I've got a long history of drama in Agile for various companies of some notoriety. In particular, I practice in Agile at Orange in an embedded team on behalf of AKQA, similarly at Nokia and similarly for Acer, with an AKQA as well, which is a creative agency if you don't know, also at Possible, another creative agency, and now at Pearson. I'm actually collecting companies starting with a P, so if you've got anyone else to offer to me. And I absolutely adore Agile. I think it's amazing that 11 years ago, some dudes went out on a retreat and decided to figure out a way to work better together, to do better products, and to do it with less pain, because it's worth it. And the manifesto they came out with, which we still apply today, has enthused people the world around. And we're now looking in companies of every shape and size to work in Agile. The way it's done here at Pearson is completely different to the way it's being done elsewhere. At the same time, not so much. We want to work together. We want to work, as the slide, doesn't matter. We want to continue in the face of obstacles and adversity, because it doesn't matter. It's not the how. It's just the getting there part that counts. We want to work in a painless way. Pain is a very important factor. It can be very, very painful to work together. There's a lot of friction between people, and when you have different objectives. And Agile has this interesting effect that anybody who approaches it wants to expand it to all disciplines, all across the business. I've heard people say, how do I make my accounting team Agile? To which I said, I'm not so sure I want them to pay invoices, you know, according to a Kanban board. And whoever came up first, just mine first, please. For software development, app development, creating products, however, it still is an absolutely amazing method. And I've been very, very lucky to have been working in Agile for the last 6 years, mostly because I go and poke my nose in Agile teams and I say, oh, can I be part of it? Because I think what you're doing is great, and I think you need me. So I've gone and sold myself into those teams. Sometimes they took me a bit reluctantly and saying, well, I'm not so sure what we need you, but well, since you're here and making a lot of noise, we're going to keep you. And sometimes they come to me and say, we think we need UX, we don't quite get it, and we don't know how to work it into the team. So you know Agile, you know UX, can you come and help us? To which I say, oh, sure, because I absolutely love the part about figuring out how to work together. And I would like to tell you a little bit today about how to integrate those disciplines into your teams. So what I would like to know first is, who here has UX or design into their team? Some people. Okay, who is UX? Not too many here, that's okay. You can just let me know at the end if it was wrong. And who does not have yet UX but is looking at getting them very soon? A couple of people. Okay, that's all right. For those people who've got those disciplines on board, how painful was it? Like, very painful? Actually, the other way around. Not painful at all, very painful. Painful, not painful? Anybody was very painful integration? Okay, you're not sure, that's fine. Let's go into it. The interesting thing about integrating UX and design is that you're going to get some new personalities into your team. So far you should have some software developers, maybe some back-end developers, maybe a Scrum Master if you're lucky, there's a lot of these. You might have an Agile Coach if you're really lucky and you've been given the structure. Or you might have a couple of product owners who've gone on a 2-day training course and are just thrown into the arena. The product owners often come from development or project management. They're very task-orientated. They stick to deadlines. They stick to objectives. The developers also like to have quite a framed world. They have to be able to code well. You need the discipline to understand the rigor of code. You can't just improvise and be fancy with code. It doesn't work. So that specific frame of mind means that your teams generally see the world in quite, not necessarily a black and white way, but in quite a formative way, and you probably have the same view of the world across the team. When you start getting UX and design, you start getting a new world of the team, new view of the world into your team. So let me present to you a bit about UX. UX is actually a discipline that encompasses specialties. A lot of things happen under the label UX, and not every UXer is good at everything within this. So you have 4 big areas: experience strategy, interaction design, user research, and information architecture. When you hire a UXer, you should ask them how well they do in each of these 4. Because very, very few people are excellent at 4 of them. Experience strategy is all about vision, long-term, considering a product from an experience point of view through all its stages, that it charms the early adopters all the way to the late comers. Interaction design is about being very meticulous and precise and drawing all the states of every element so that the interaction, the actions with them, are specified. So no developer ever wonders, what happens when I click this? Or, is this a button or is this something else? User research is a whole area of skills that encompasses researching directly, conducting interviews, but also indirectly, conducting surveys, conducting ethnographic research, finding out about users, being very much about people. And finally, information architecture is the very organized state of mind from which you go all the way into content management, content audit, and content strategy. It's about the rigor with which the information is put through. An IA would get along very well with a technical architect because things need to hold up together. Those 4 disciplines work in a greater scheme. And if I take them further, your experience strategy and your interaction design evolve into industrial design, evolve into your web design. The very visionary, the very colorful, the very experiential people. Those who understand the world with what they see, what they hear, what they can touch. Your user research automation architecture, this has its base in psychology, information science, library science. The very methodical people, very much about data and facts. Interaction design and information architecture on the right, you're going to human-computer interaction. Again, very research-focused, very methodical. And on the other side, experience strategy and user research can take you towards business strategy, market research, and all the business angle, where you back into the vision, the long-term, the plan. How does it fit in the bigger picture? As you can see, you can't be good at all of these. So when you have a UXer on board, you may want to ask them, where do they fare? This comes from Jason Messett, who is UX Director at Plan. That comes from his deck about helping UXers sell themselves. And he recommends people just try and map themselves on it. And I would engage you to try and map your UXer and see, where do you need them? Do you need them to be IAs because you need structure, because you have a lot of content to manipulate? Do you need content strategy because the vision you have for the product is a business vision, but you're struggling incorporating it with a user vision, with a product, a public vision? What about the research? Is the research really what's missing you, and you need somebody who's really, really strong with those research skills, who can maybe share the techniques with the rest of your teams? Or do you want to ignore these things and focus exclusively on the very much the interaction design, maybe even the visual design, maybe have a hybrid of UX and designer to take care of creating comps, creating visuals that help your developers just get on with the job? As you can see, within this, you don't have one personality. You're going to have the very visionary, very big picture, very I can see the future. You have the highly detailed, methodical, to the pixel, I want the data, I'm going to go at it. And you have the softer touch, which is I can adapt between the detail and the big picture. Now, that capacity to adapt between precise, methodical, organized, and the loose, big vision, and to conduct constantly between one and the other is a rare skill. It's not everybody can do that. But if you can find somebody like this and you have a true hybrid who helps you, whatever stage your project is at, they can help you find the data when you need something really precise, maybe to support a business case, maybe to demonstrate you've passed your hypothesis. Or you may want somebody who participates with the vision and helps frame the business vision with a user one, a customer one. With so many personalities on board, how do you embed it? Well, if you know your UXer come in many, many flavors, you hopefully by now will look out as to what kind of unicorn are you adding to your team. And it'll be a lot easier to introduce them as saying, here's Anna, and she's very much about the detail. She's going to help us with the content and getting really rigidly organized so that we are no longer confused about how our content is displayed or how it's used or how it's organized. It's a lot easier than saying, oh, here's Anna, she can do everything. And you also want to let the person explain how they can contribute to the team. And I'm bridging onto Sprint Zero here because at the beginning, Agile can look like a really, really scary race. You know, the gates are open, the crowds are surging, and there's a lot of pressure to deliver quickly because of the myth that Agile is faster. Not in the beginning at all. Maybe at the end, if you're any good at it. It does do better things in the meantime, though. So there's a big question, which is, okay, so now we have our UXer, we know who they are, we have our designer, we know what place they have in the team. Where do we fit them in? Don't worry about this, that's just the cord against the flags. They're bugging me all day long. Sprint Zero is when, well, we are working in sprints, so we cannot not have anything done without a sprint. Panic about the structure. But we're not yet in Sprint 1 because there are no developers, so we're going to call that Sprint 0. If it's the phase where you are figuring out what you're going to do and why you're going to do it, personally, I don't care if you call it Sprint 0 or sandbox or design phase, as long as there is enough time to figure out the why and the what. The how is what you do in your sprints, is what you do with the rest of the greater team. But if you come into the sprint and you don't know, you're not sure what you're going to do or why you should do it, but guys, I really want you to figure out how to do it, it generally ends up in incredibly long planning discussions with a lot of confusion. It generally ends up in unfinished stories because halfway through the dev's like, actually, I have no idea what I'm doing and how I can do it. And it just makes the whole project seem very, very sluggish. So don't be afraid of the crowd surging forth, and get your UXer enough time with the rest of the team, and particularly with your product owner, to figure out the how and the why. Leave the what aside. But if for everything that you want to build, you can figure out the how, the what it is, and the why, you've done a big chunk of work. And I was discussing this afternoon, here at Pearson we have a lot of Agile communities, and we held this afternoon a lean cafe here. And one of the questions that I put forward to the crowd was, how do you work currently with your UXers? Very nosy, I will go and ask questions. And one person said, well, actually I quite struggle, I don't quite know how to integrate them. And another said, well, I'm the PO, and he almost described a second brain. Somebody that he absolutely trusted to faff into the backlog, create stories, get on with the work. The UXer, if you've recruited well, can be the PO's best friend. Because whereas the PO, in my opinion, will take on listening to the business, understanding what they need, and give it back to them, your UXer will listen to the users, understand what they need, and give it back to them. And the third part is, of course, your developers, who understand what can be done, and they are answerable not to the business or to the users, they're answerable to the coding community, so that you never have a coder coming in who says, oh, this is crap, we just need to redo it all. So there are allegiances, and you want all these boxes to be ticked so that your product keeps going and going from strength to strength without ever hitting a stone that users haven't been consulted, business is not kept in the loop, code is messy. Keep these in. Your Sprint 0 is a partnership. So this is an image of a British Olympic runner. She's blind, and she's got a helper. So he sees. He's running as fast as she is, by the way. And they're just holding a little string together. What I find really, really impressive is that this guy is absolutely not the hero of the story. She is. But she couldn't have done it without him. I think the UXer should be that guy who helps the blind person. Not that I'm saying that POs are blind, but if you don't listen to your users, if you don't understand them, If you are not aware of their problems and issues and pain points, I'm sorry, but you are blind. The UXer doesn't have to be the hero. He can be your best helper. He can help you get to success. You have to trust them to get there. And I think trust is a very important element. Because if you start doubting the person who brings you back the voice of the users, what's the point? It's not going to work. What Sprint Zero definitely is not is a relay race, where there's a tendency to think, oh, you UXer designer person, go over there, do whatever it is you do, and then come back with the findings and give it to us. It's like a waterfall. We'll do Agile from there because Agile is development. The problem with this approach is that the person will go, they will do whatever needs to do, they'll come back with findings. Nobody will have been involved in what has been researched, how it's been researched, how the results came up, and how you can use the findings. So even if they produce the most amazing PowerPoint of 10 things you have to do with your product to make it a winner, I can tell you the adoption of that will be nil. Whereas if you integrate your UX early on with the rest of the team, and you let the rest of the team understand what they're doing, how they're going about it, maybe attend some user interviews, maybe spend some time explaining how you do some exercises, for example, a card sorting exercise, or even just how you build a wireframe. You know, how do you make a wireframe? It's not just making boxes. It's about taking into account what problems does this page have to answer? What does it have to take to do there? What design principles are we abiding to create coherence about the product? The more you integrate the rest of the team with UX, the more you integrate UX with the rest of the team, by dialogue, the better it works. Which leads us to avoiding skill segregation. There is one team. You cannot talk about the team and design, or the team and UX. That is seeding conflict. That is seeding segregation. There is one team, and your UXer is in it or not. Some teams struggle for resource and have to share the UXer with other projects. It doesn't matter if John is only there half of the time or only on Tuesdays. He's in the team. And I would really recommend, even if you're spread across projects, to be in all the rituals, the stand-ups, the planning sessions, the retrospectives. Every ritual that brings a team together is where they belong. And I sometimes have to force myself into those rituals. I have been known to come and join a team, and the very first day I will stand up in the scrum and I'll be like that, and they'll very politely go around, and then they come to me, and this is Britain, people are very, very polite, so they look at me, kind of hoping I'm not going to have enough. And this is where I say, okay, so hi, I'm the UXer, I'm new here. So yesterday I got introduced to the project when I was recruited. Today I'm going to meet with you and get to know what you're doing. And I think the first thing that I need to know is understand what we're trying to build so I can support you. And then I step back, they look at me a bit puzzled, and then we go on. And then the next day, I keep going. And by adopting the rituals of the developers, so by saying what I've done, what I will be doing, any blockers, maybe by picking up, oh, you're having problems with this, I can help you with this, let's take it offline. Progressively, I start owning space with the team. I can do that if the Scrum Master, who runs the ritual, gives me that space. So Scrum Masters integrate the UXers. If they don't know Agile, brief them. Brief them on the purpose of the ritual. Brief them on how they can contribute and what the rules are. And let them take the space and own it. In general, I recommend in Agile that no beginner, no junior UXer should join. Because you need to be really, really good at your craft when you're attempting to understand a new process, a new way of working. And there's also this issue of speed, velocity, where Agile teams want to go really, really fast, especially in the beginning, because they have to demonstrate to the business that they're bringing value. If you're junior at your craft and learning a new process, it's going to be incredibly painful and ripe with errors. So I strongly recommend you to hire an experienced UXer and bring them up into Agile, or take somebody really experienced at Agile and eventually let them ramp up their UX skills. If ever you work with a distributed team, there are lots of solutions. At the moment, my team is in New York. I'm the only one almost left in London with a Scrum Master who is sometimes a Scrum Master and a coach, and sometimes just watches things from a distance to let us know how we're doing. New York is not too bad. They're just 5 hours behind, so they come online at 2 o'clock. So in the morning, I can do my stuff. 2 o'clock, they come online. 2:45, we have a stand-up, and then we get on in the afternoon. We had some hiccups in the team, and the stand-ups were, I think, were happening in New York, but I wasn't invited anymore. And it took me saying, oh, I think I need to be part in there. And the Scrum Master helped me get in there by saying, just very innocently, oh, are there any stand-ups happening? And I said, oh yes, oh great, can I have an invite? And we're back in. Skype or Google Hangout do wonders. I don't feel that my team is far away. I feel that my team is on another floor and I'm just too lazy to go up the stairs, which would be very realistic. So distance is not an issue. If they were more than 5 time zones away, then it would start getting problematic. But having the whole afternoon means I can hang out, we have informal discussions before everybody joins in the morning in their stand-up. So their morning, my after lunch, we're all equally unawake. We just chat, so we're waiting for people on. So yesterday I was chatting with one of the developers about a book I was reading. She said, oh great, I'm going to get it. Get human. The secret of distributed team is about the relationship. The problem is the same if the team is in a room or across continents. It's about building relationships. Your UXer loves people. They root for the users. So they should be empathetic. They should be able to place themselves in the shoes of others. So they can find a way to talk to people, whoever they are, to engage in a conversation, mostly out of interest because they want the details back so they can do their personas and they can do their user journeys, but very often because they're genuinely interested. I love doing user interviews because I just love knowing other people's lives. But that's also an asset in my work because by being empathetic, I can approach a developer, even the most bear in a cavern type of dev, and using my empathy, I can just get to know them and get to understand them. And actually working with devs is the absolute joy of my life in Agile because I love the way they see the world in such a different fashion than me. And on my team there's one developer who is extremely rigorous and methodical and who will find the flaw in everything. I love that. She keeps me on my toes, don't get me wrong, I know she'll come in it. I don't take it personally, there's no ego in there. But however, when she says, Sophie, this thing that you find out, what about this? Very good point. Actually, you know what, I did not ask this question, I'll make sure I ask it next time, make a note. And it's so useful to me to have somebody who's got the absolute impeccable rigor so that she helps me dot the I's and cross the T's. Teamwork. Teamwork is what makes it better. Except when it comes to documentation. Now, if you remember the Agile documentation, we prefer working software over documentation. We value the items on the left, we don't ignore the items on the right. I solved the documentation problem by asking a very simple question. What does a developer need to do their job? Sometimes I ask them directly, what do you need to do this job? Sometimes they say, well, I don't need anything, we can have a conversation. Or the user story is enough, I think I get it. To which one I usually say, can you just sketch it for me so I'm sure that what you have in your mind is what I have in my mind? Sometimes they will say, well, I want some really precise specs because I want to be absolutely sure I'm not doing it wrong. And sometimes I'm like, well, I don't know. I'll say, okay, let's find out. Here comes in pair designing and sketching and lowest denomination. I'm kind of lazy. I don't want to do more than what I have to do. So if doing a sketch is enough, I will do a sketch. And what I will do in general is I'll start by a sketch. And if this doesn't work, I'll amp up the fidelity. I'm not going to start at the other end by fully polished comms with highly detailed specifications. No, I start the easy way. And I see how it goes. Sketches are great because they're fast to do. They're also non-threatening. You don't come across smashing people with very slick documentation. And the best way to use them, I found, is to redo them with the person. So I will do my sketches in my corners to get my idea together or to understand how I want to approach it. And then rather than survey, if I can, I will redo them with the person as I talk. Because all of a sudden I'm engaging their brain in several ways. They're getting it visually, they're getting it auditory, and they can even take the pen and draw in and get to understand it the way they understand it. Sketches are fantastic. If sketches are enough, I'll stay there. I'm also a big fan of pair designing and pair coding. So if I can sit next to my designer or next to a developer, and I don't have to take a pen, but I can just point at the screen and say, can you move this one down? How about if you put it there? Can we try this? We get so much more done. And we collaborate whilst doing this. It's not my vision. I'm not the brain and they're the hands. The both of us are working together. We're defining a solution together. The interesting thing about this is, there was data, there was research done about brainstorming that demonstrated that brainstorming, so putting people together in a room and having them think together, produces fewer ideas and ideas of lesser quality than if those same people were thinking on their own. It's a pretty scary finding, so that says, okay, don't brainstorm. However, what it's missing is, by working together, we create bonds and relationships and rapports that help us through the hard times. So if the idea finding is the easy part, yeah, you can do it on your own. But when the project will hit a bump, or the team will hit a bump, you will need those rapport and relationships to be really, really strong so the team pulls in and gets through. So it's okay to have fewer ideas and ideas of lesser qualities because you have a stronger team. So don't think that time spent thinking together, solving together is a waste. Quite the contrary, it's an investment. And again, your UXer has skills in facilitating discussion and facilitating the outcome of insights that can help the rest of the team. So the most timid developer will start blooming if they're coached the right way. I'm kind of cheeky that way. I like to get people to work well together. I think not everybody is the best profile for Agile. You need to have developers, for example, who want to work with others. If they're really of the bear in the cave type, they probably should not be in an Agile team. Similarly, you will see some UXers who are like, no, I want to go in my cave and I don't want to talk to anybody. I might talk to some users, but I'm certainly not talking to developers. Don't put those in an Agile team. It's just not going to work. Take the chatty ones in, the ones who are happy to play. And in the documentation, very quickly, what I do say in my projects is the final product is a documentation. If it goes live, I've reviewed it, I've vetted it. And I will only describe the behaviors that are invisible to the end user. That way, I don't have to constantly update comps every time a pixel moves on the screen. And I just focus on the essentials. I focus on what needs a legacy. If you can pick up the app and see the interface, I don't need to document it any further than maybe the sketch that was behind it. And when the team said, well, we really need a bit more than that, why? What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do that the code doesn't do? What are you going to do? Are you going to get created by another team? I challenged it this way. What I'm really recommending you to incorporate UX and design smoothly into your team is really to experiment. And find your pace. Find the right people for your team and find the right team for your people. Work to people's strength. So back to our UXer, make sure you get somebody with the right skill set for what your project needs. Make sure that they bring you the information in a way your team can digest it. I pay a lot of attention to making sure that whatever I bring is usable. So I was in Brazil in December testing with some users, and my biggest concern was not the testing. I can chat with those people in my atrocious Spanish Portuguese. My big concern was, how do I bring these learnings back to the business? Because if those learnings are not incorporated into the project, or even into the greater scope of how do we work in Agile, how do we run user research, for me that's a fail. The fact that I managed to go there, that I got some research done, some interviews, that I wrote a big report, doesn't count if the business doesn't do it. And I'm still finding my way. I'm finding my way at what information the business needs to go forward, what information my product owner needs to make decisions, what information my team needs. From this research, I was able to develop personas because finally I had some data. So now, although we're about 12, 14 weeks into the project, we finally have some personas. So my next endeavor is going to be integrating the personas in the way we work. And I'm going to do this by encouraging everybody never to say I, but by saying Natalia, Eduardo, Thiago. I deliberately chose name that you can say easily in English, little thing. Because my strength is helping other people do their job well. I do my job well, but also help everyone. I have no interest in being amazing at my job and let everybody struggle around. It doesn't work for me. I mentioned earlier to get people with the right skills on board. I would say all along, help them embrace Agile, see the value. I think there's something about Agile that it's so much about teamwork and the togetherness that it can be confusing, and some people at some point may stand up and say, well, what's in it for me? And particularly if you get a freelancer or somebody who's concerned about their career, it becomes very, very difficult to extract your own work from the team's work and then to sell that. So for example, the project I'm on, I can sell the personas and look at what I did. However, the end product is not my thinking. It's the team's thinking, and I'm incredibly proud of this. I'm proud to be part of that team, and I'm proud that my thinking has been dissolved into the final product, because I think this is where there is real value. As the UXer, hopefully, and your designer are empathetic and will see the world as the rest of the team views. Start seeing the world through a user's eye. especially if you've been on your product for a really, really long time, do go out and give your product to somebody who's never seen it and see what they experience and try to feel what they experience. Never forgetting your user is one thing. Combining the user with the business reality is another challenge. But just hitting business goals and never any user focus is pointless. One of the questions that I like asking is, what problem are we solving? Do we even know if this is a problem? If we don't know if this is a problem, why are we spending any time on this? Maybe it's not a problem, and we don't need to spend any time. Definitely work towards peer designing and coding. By peer designing or coding, I mean literally sit together in front of a single computer. I don't care who takes the commands. Probably don't let me code. Dangerous. Don't let me design. They're dangerous. Look at how ugly the slides are. But the two brains and one result is a win on time, a win on effort, a win on quality, a win on rapport and relationship. You get such a strong team. And at the end of the day, this is what it's all about. It's about working together, inventing ways of working better, so to produce better products for the greater good. Thank you very much. Do you want to rate this slide?